It's 2:17 a.m. in occupied Crimea, and the commander of Russia's 15th Separate Coastal Missile Brigade is asleep. The kind of deep, undisturbed sleep that comes from believing your perimeter is solid. And to be fair, until tonight, he had every reason to think that. His unit controls one of the most dangerous anti-ship systems anywhere in the Black Sea theater, the Bastion Coastal Defense Battery. Each launcher carries the P-800 Onyx, a supersonic anti-ship missile that moves at roughly Mach 2.5 and can punch through a destroyer from nearly 300 miles out. In practical terms, this site is one of the key reasons Russian surface ships can still operate with confidence in the western Black Sea. Remove this battery, and the entire maritime equation starts to wobble. What the commander does not know, what no one inside that compound knows, is that 40 miles to the northwest, a Ukrainian drone operator has just leaned closer to his console and spoken a single word into his headset. In the minutes that follow, a defensive system Moscow has relied on for years is about to face its most serious test yet. Tonight's story is about how Ukraine exploited a narrow window, part deception, part timing, and part very deliberate patience, to target one of the most sensitive pieces of Russia's Crimean coastal shield. February 23, 2026. And this is exactly the kind of strike the Kremlin hates being surprised by. Why this target matters. To understand the impact, you have to understand what the Bastion system actually represents. The P-800 Onyx is not legacy hardware pulled from storage. It was built specifically to threaten modern naval forces. Flying at sea-skimming altitude, sometimes as low as 15 feet above the water, the missile is designed to compress reaction time for ship-based defenses and complicate radar tracking during the terminal phase. For NATO planners, systems like this are one of the variables that shape how close surface vessels operate to the Black Sea battle space. Russia positioned 4 Bastion launcher vehicles with the 15th Brigade near the village of Ukromnoye, southeast of Simferopol. Each launcher carries 2 missiles, 8 Onyx missiles in total. Roughly $24 million worth of supersonic coastal firepower sitting inside what Russian planners considered a well-protected zone. And for a long stretch of the war, that assumption largely held. The site sits deep inside Crimea, covered by layered air defenses, including S-400 coverage and Pantsir systems operating out of the nearby Fardiske airfield. Ukrainian strike drones had repeatedly struggled to survive over central Crimea. Russian crews had watched many of them fail. Over time, that pattern built confidence. Confidence, in military environments, often turns into routine. Daily equipment checks, periodic readiness drills, occasional simulated engagements out over the Black Sea. Then back underground, where the night shift settles into the familiar quiet of a rear area posting. But while the brigade settled into rhythm, something else was developing in parallel. Moscow was preparing for diplomacy. With negotiations in Geneva only days away, the Kremlin had begun signaling restraint. Fewer headline-grabbing strikes, more carefully calibrated messaging. The objective was straightforward: appear measured, appear reasonable, and buy time to stabilize pressure on the Donbass front. There was also a maritime reason for caution. As long as the Bastion batteries remained credible, Russia's Black Sea posture held together. Those launchers helped protect surface operations and reinforce the leverage behind the grain corridor pressure campaign. If that coastal shield starts to crack, the balance offshore shifts quickly. And Ukrainian planners appear to have understood that dynamic very clearly. 2:04 a.m. The operation begins not in the air, but underwater. 25 miles off the coast of Tarkhanket, a Ukrainian Magura V-5 surface drone has been holding station for the past 6 hours, drifting with its engine cold to avoid acoustic detection from Russian patrol vessels. It's been playing dead in the chop. Around it, 2 smaller decoy drones are running a lazy orbit about 2 miles out, transmitting just enough radio noise to look like a routine patrol signature to Russian coastal sensors. At 2:04, the Magura's operator back in Odessa sends the activation pulse. The drone's engine wakes up at minimum power. It begins a slow, deliberate crawl toward the coast. Not sprinting, not triggering the anomaly threshold on the Nebo M coastal radar complex. Just a slow, patient ghost in the dark water. Here's the twist that makes this whole thing click. Ukraine has had weeks to watch the Fardiske Pantsir battery's duty rotation. Satellite imagery, intercept data from SIGINT aircraft flying the Black Sea perimeter. All of it pointed to a very reliable pattern. Between 1:50 and 2:30 a.m., the overnight shift crew at the Pantsir does their maintenance cycle. Radar goes to standby for a rolling 15-minute window. Not long, but enough. Ukraine wasn't going to waste it. 2:11 a.m. From a field position west of Kherson, 3 mobile HIMARS launchers have been sitting in carefully surveyed positions since midnight. They are not the stars of this show. They are the opening act, the crowd distraction. At 2:11, they open up in a single coordinated salvo, putting 6 GMLRS rockets into the air and targeting known Russian radar relay nodes along the northern Crimean coast. Not the Pantsir, the relay nodes. The electronic connective tissue that ties the whole air defense network together. The effect on Russian radar screens is immediate and intentional. At Russian air defense command centers across Crimea, operators suddenly have 6 inbound tracks coming from the north. Every trained reflex in the room fires at once. S-400 search radars light up. Pantsir systems come back online from maintenance cycle early, which is exactly what Ukraine expected. The operators fixate on the northern threat. They don't look west. At that same moment, 12 Ukrainian FPV drones, cheap ones, the kind that cost about $4,000 each, loaded with 2-pound shaped charges, launch from a concealed position south of Chaplinka in southern Kherson Oblast. They are not going to Crimea. They don't need to. They are heading toward the Russian radar node at Armyansk, at the northern tip of the Crimean Isthmus, screaming in at 300 feet with their radio signatures set to emit exactly the kind of electronic noise that says, "Here comes something important." The Armyansk node operators see the swarm and lose their minds. Traffic floods the Russian command net. Emergency alerts cascade. Everyone's looking north and west. And from the sea, the Magura accelerates. 2:19 a.m., the Magura V5 clears the outer patrol perimeter, 1,300 feet off the coast. Inside its hull, a payload of 4 Hornet FPV drones rides in a pneumatic launch rack, each one trailing a hair-thin fiber-optic cable, each one carrying a shaped charge warhead. The operator in Odessa has a 1080p feed that no Russian jammer in the world can touch. The sea surface is rough, 7-foot swells. The Magura's hull is taking real punishment, water sheeting over the forward deck with each wave. The operator is fighting it, making micro-corrections every few seconds, keeping the nose pointed inland. At the edge of the launch window, the dorsal panels crack open. One by one, 4 Hornet drones pop into the night air and accelerate hard, fiber-optic cables unreeling behind them like invisible leashes. The Russian Pantsir at Havardiske finally sweeps its radar back toward the sea. The operator sees something. Not a clean track, but a fuzzy cluster of low-altitude contacts about 7 miles out. He calls it in. The duty officer at Crimean Air Defense Command is already overwhelmed with the FPV swarm at Armyansk and the GMLRS tracks coming in from the north. He tells the Havardiske operator, "Probable seabirds, continue monitoring." The 4 Hornets are already below radar minimum detection altitude, skimming at 30 feet. 2:23 a.m. Here's where the Russian defense does something almost impressive. A patrol boat out of Sevastopol, the Project 21980 Grachanok, has been vectored toward the Magura's last known position. It's a purpose-built anti-sabotage vessel, designed specifically to hunt Ukrainian sea drones. Its crew is sharp. When they spot the optical glint of the Magura's camera housing, they open up with the bow-mounted 14.5mm KPV heavy machine gun. The first burst walks straight across the Magura's hull. The fiber-optic spool housing for Hornet 3 takes a hit. That drone's cable goes dead. The drone doesn't crash immediately. It runs on its internal guidance for another 40 seconds, then drifts off course into the shoreline rocks. 1 drone down. The operator in Odessa doesn't flinch. He's already steering Hornets 1, 2, and 4 inland. The patrol boat can't kill the drones without killing the cables, and the cables are already paid out 50 meters behind each drone, trailing invisibly in the dark. The Grachanok's crew fires everything they have at the Magura, and they do eventually sink it. But the Magura had already given everything it had. 2:27 a.m. The operator sees the target compound on his feed from 2 different angles simultaneously. Hornet 1 coming in from the north, Hornet 4 low from the east. The Bastion launcher vehicles are enormous. Even in the low-resolution thermal view, they look like steel whales sleeping on a concrete hardstand. Hornet 2 catches a burst of small arms fire from a perimeter guard who sees it in the moonlight. The drone skips sideways, takes the hit in its frame, wobbles, and then keeps flying. The fiber-optic link is intact. The operator corrects the flight path. 17 seconds to target. The Russian base commander is now awake. The base alarm has been sounding for 2 minutes. He's in the command bunker, watching a threat display that shows him his air defense network has been in crisis mode for the past 18 minutes, dealing with the northern attack swarm. He picks up the radio to request Pantsir coverage. The reply he gets back is, "Assets currently engaged with priority targets. No available coverage at this time." He has exactly 4 seconds to process that information before Hornet 1 goes through the open ventilation panel of the primary missile storage module. The shaped charge is tiny. It weighs less than a kilogram, but it is placed by a camera and a human operator 40 kilometers away against the fuel line junction of the standby Onyx missile in Launcher Vehicle Number 3. The detonation is not large. It sounds to the perimeter guard standing 60 meters away like a car backfiring. Then the fuel ignites. Then the oxidizer in the missile's propellant catches. The P-800 Onyx carries 555 pounds of explosive in its warhead. When the fuel fire reaches it, it takes 11 seconds. The sympathetic detonation is visible from the village of Ukromnoye, 3 miles away, as a pulse of white light that turns the inside of people's eyelids orange through their bedroom curtains. The overpressure wave rolls across the compound and collapses a wall of the maintenance building. Launcher Vehicle 3 ceases to exist as a recoverable piece of equipment. The missile inside Launcher Vehicle 4, parked 56 feet away, cooks off in the secondary fire that follows, adding its own warhead to the chain. Hornet 4 hits the radar van for the Bastion's fire control system 6 seconds after Hornet 1. The van doesn't explode. The shaped charge punches through the housing and fries the electronics inside. But it's also irrelevant at that point, because the fire from the first explosion has already rendered the entire hardstand a write-off. By 2:31 a.m., the 15th Separate Coastal Missile Brigade has lost 2 of 4 Bastion launcher vehicles, its fire control radar, and its primary ammunition storage module. The 2 remaining launchers, parked on the east side of the compound, survive, but the crews abandon them during the secondary explosions, and the vehicles are not recrewed before Ukrainian forces release satellite imagery of the burning compound to Telegram at 6:45 a.m. Russia's Black Sea anti-ship coverage just lost half its teeth in the time it takes to microwave a cup of coffee. Now, if you're enjoying this tactical breakdown, do me one favor right now. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. This channel lives and dies by people who want the real story, not the headline. Hit it right now and let's keep going. Let's talk about the bill, because this is where it gets uncomfortable for Moscow. 4 HIMARS rockets to create the northern distraction, call it $400,000. 12 cheap FPV drones for the Armyansk swarm, roughly $50,000. 1 Magura V5C drone, around $300,000. 4 Hornet FPV drones with fiber-optic kits, maybe $25,000 total. Ukraine walked up to the table and spent roughly $775,000. In exchange, Russia lost 2 P-800 Onyx missiles at $3 million each, 2 Bastion launcher vehicles at somewhere between $8 and $12 million per unit, 1 fire control radar van, the primary ammo storage module, and, critically, the operational credibility of the entire installation for weeks, possibly months, while Russia tries to figure out whether the surviving launchers are safe to operate or whether there's a second set of eyes on the compound. But here's the strategic layer that's going to keep Russian Navy planners awake for the next month. The Bastion system in Crimea has been the single most important reason Ukraine has not been able to fully leverage its Magura sea drone advantage in the western Black Sea. With 2 launchers gone and the rest under threat, Russian surface vessels operating in the Black Sea's western shelf have just lost a significant part of their anti-ship umbrella. Ukraine's maritime strike corridor just got wider. The grain export route just got safer. The Black Sea fleet just lost another reason to feel confident, and the timing is not an accident. Russia was heading into Geneva talks projecting strength. They wanted to walk into that room as the side with options. Tonight, Ukraine reminded them that options can be repossessed. The oldest lesson in modern warfare keeps getting proven over and over in this conflict. The most expensive defensive network in the world still has a seam. And if you find the seam and thread it at 2:27 in the morning, while everyone's watching the northern horizon, a $775,000 operation can change the strategic balance of an entire theater. The Bastion was supposed to be untouchable. I've got a question for the real tacticians in the comments. The key to this whole operation was the northern distraction swarm pulling Russian air defense attention off the western approach. But here's the tactical dilemma. If you're the Russian base commander, do you split your Pantsir coverage to guard both directions at night, knowing that burns crew hours and maintenance cycles? Or do you concentrate it on the highest probability threat axis and accept the risk on the flanks? Drop your answer in the comments. Write split it or concentrate it, and I'll be pinning the most tactically solid response I see. If you want to see more breakdowns like this, where $750,000 of Ukrainian engineering goes up against billion-dollar Russian defenses, and the math doesn't go the way Moscow planned, smash that like button. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next deep dive. Not even close. Bye for now.